Hello, I'm Anthony from Sure Shot Archery, and today we'll be talking about nocks, how to replace and remove them. The first arrow we have here is an arrow that's made completely out of carbon, and it has an insert nock. Now if this nock was damaged and it was really stuck in there, you may want to take some pliers or needle nose and twist it out, or you may be able to do it by hand. So you just want to give it a good twist and pull. Now that the nock is out, you can see that it has little hills or mountains. It helps hold the nock in the inside of the arrow by applying pressure from the inside out, because it's slightly bigger than the interior of the arrow, which allows it to hold. You may want to glue these nocks in just to make sure that they will actually stay. So you would just then put a little bit of glue on around the bottom of the nock that goes in the arrow. Then put the nock in the arrow and give it a little bit of a twist. And make sure it lines up with the cock vane of the arrow so that when it's on the bowstring, on the bow, it is in the correct position to be fired. Our next arrow is an Easton Acc. It is also a nock insert arrow. It has an aluminum bushing where the nock goes in at. Now if this nock was damaged, you would also probably need pliers to remove it, because it is the same design idea as the previous arrow, where it has little hills that push up from the inside of the arrow. Now this nock is very hard to get in when they're brand new, so I would recommend using a nock tool to help twist the nock while you push. And if you're having a problem getting it all the way in, then carefully turn the arrow upside down and push down on a hard surface, pushing the arrow in. And the last thing to do is just make sure that it's aligned properly with your vanes if you're replacing the nock, or align it so that you can then fletch it later on. The next arrow after that is an oversert nock. To remove these, you want to bend them back and forth to crack the glue if they're glued on, and then twist to break it off. Sometimes the glue sticks and bonds really well, and if the nock is broken, then just take pliers to it and you're going to have to break it off, and then use a sharp tool to clean the end of the arrow off so you can re-glue it and put a new nock on. To re-glue it, just want to put a dab of glue on the inside of the nock and then place it back onto the arrow. Give it a good push so that it sticks on. Another way to place nocks on these arrows, and I personally do not recommend it, is to just use the force of pushing it onto the arrow to allow it to stay. It works fairly well, but unless it's a very desperate situation, I would not recommend this, because it is only being held on by the force of you pushing the nock onto the oversert of the arrow to hold it there. So it doesn't take too much effort to separate the two. The next arrow we have is an Easton Acc X7. This has an insert nock with an aluminum bushing. This has the same design as the first two arrows we went over. It has little hills on it that push upwards when inside the arrow. This is another nock that I would recommend using the nock tool on, because it makes it much easier to put the nocks into the arrow. I would not recommend using pliers or a needle nose trying to force the nock in there. If you don't have a nock tool, then take the time out to go and get a nock tool, even if you have to order one online and wait, because it's not worth damaging the nocks and possibly cracking them or changing their shape and affecting your shot when you're going to shoot the target. So to put the nock in, just like the first two, you're just going to push and turn. And if you have a problem getting it in, you just want to align it and then push it against the table. And then it's in. And then just rotate the nock so that it matches with the cock vane of the arrow. You may or may not want to use glue with this. These generally hold in extremely tight with the Easton Arrow and Easton Nock. I do not know about other brands, but for these you will most likely not need glue. And the last arrow is the pin nock on the Easton X10. The pin nock has a pin that allows the nock to attach on. Now, the nock itself is held onto the pin by pressure and not glue. They're on there pretty good, so they don't like to move. But if you ever need to remove the pin, you just got to heat it up again. Carefully, we don't need to melt the whole thing. A little heat, comes right out. Need to put it back in, a little glue. And it goes right back in, just like that. Wipe it off and you're all set. Just let it cool and you'll be able to put your nock back on.